Hey Onacles, welcome to the next edition of Forum Bites. In this episode we have a conversation about another one of your questions about handing over your leadership role. And you never know, this may also be the final Forum Bites episode. So you're getting ready to hand over your leadership role. You're handing it over to the next individual who will be taking over from you. And I'm going to assume that you are going to be planning a meeting with them, a coffee, a handover, some type of meeting with them to pass that leadership role on. But you're wondering what is the best process, or what are some experience shares to make that whole process a successful one. Now, the first thing I've always spoken to leaders when they're handing over the leadership role, like moderator role, I ask them to think more about not the person you're handing your role over to, but the person after that. Because if you can come up with a process that takes care of that person after the current person's taking over from you, your system would be sound. The amount of times that I've seen leadership roles handed over to the next generation, and then the following generation comes along and everything that was learnt or done at the very first generation is either totally forgotten or totally missed. So whatever you're going to do to hand over your leadership role, think about the perspective of not the next in line, but the one after that. And if you use that person's perspective to gauge your handover ability or your handover documents or your handover process, I've found, at least in my experience, that's the best way to self-judge your process. The next point, of course, is a couple of recommendations on how you actually do that. Some people, for example, between moderators actually have a file where they hand it over to the next moderator that shows them what they did, how they did it, the learnings they had, things they would start, stop, continue, maybe even copies of some forms that they actually used during their term as moderator or whatever leadership role that they're doing. Some people have, for example, a Dropbox folder or an iCloud folder that each person adds to each year. So in other words, the incoming leadership role has access to previous forms actually used. And another one I've seen in a local chapter just around here, I believe it is Brisbane and Queensland, they actually have a Bible that they hand over between presidents. I know here in Perth they also had Bibles that was handed over between actual board roles. And what that is that's an ongoing document or form or book that is handed down through the generations of leadership to hand it on to the next generation to remember what happened before. For example, in the president one, each president writes into them what they did, what they found worked, start, stop, continue, and anything that they would like to pass on to the next generation of leadership. So in other words, it's designed to make sure that not the next generation, but the generations after that don't repeat the same issues that the first generation actually did. See, it's more about how you hand this on from the point of view of future-proofing, in other words, the experience that you had, not necessarily just a process for handing things over. Now, how you do that obviously is totally up to you. But do remember that you're handing over something which needs to be a bedrock that the next leadership role builds upon. And then naturally the next generation builds on top of that, and it continues to get better. When the handover role is not thought in a generational point of view, it's just thought about it just a one-stop shop, here you go, I'm out. What I've seen leadership roles do, including moderators, is then go and build the totally new base somewhere else, and they are doomed to repeat the same challenges and same problems that actually happened in the past. Handover is more about avoiding the past than trying to control the future. And funny enough, that's where the Forum Bites YouTube channel came from. It came from actually sharing the experiences here to help you avoid the problems of the past or the issues and challenges to allow you what they are so you can make your own decision going forward. Now, my tenure as Forum Lead Expert is coming to an end. And as I said to you at the very beginning of this whole journey, even if I leave, these videos will remain. Primarily about, once again, handing over a leadership role to the next generation to hopefully be a resource for you going forward. Does it mean Forum Bites is stopping? I don't know. All I'm focusing on right now is transitioning this leadership over to the next generation, and Forum Bites, well, will probably become something else. What it is, I don't know. but this resource will stay. And I thought it was the appropriate time to talk about that as you plan to hand over your own leadership role. Now, I'm going to be going to GLC in Macau. I'm going there with my son because, funny enough, they've actually opened it up to the wider community, and they've got a learning day straight after GLC, which I'm going to be engaging with my 16-year-old son as he starts to grow up in business, which is fantastic. I'm also going off to China with some EO mates to actually go to Shanghai to go to the Great Wall, which is an outstanding thing that I can tie into my EO leadership journey. But I would say, as always, if anyone's got any questions whatsoever, please leave them in the comments section. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. And hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll find out the new direction of Forum Bites. But as always, I'll see you in the next episode.